Hi, and welcome back to the World of Cars channel. Before we're gonna start on a new project, I would like to thank all my subscribers, all the people who left the comments, and all the viewers. Again, guys, these videos are for you, to inspire you to work on your cars. Today, we're gonna talk about how we're gonna change the most of our cooling system. That does not include the radiator. That does not include the water pump. That does not include the heater radiator, which is behind your firewall. But that includes the upper and the lower radiator hose. That includes the inlet outlet heater hoses. That includes the clamps, the water inlet, the water outlet, thermostat housing, thermostat, temperature sensor, and temperature sensor gauge. Also will change the cooling pipe O-rings. My intention was to change the thermostat, temperature sensor, lower and upper radiator hoses and clamps. As I went on and I'm taking the things down, the mess what I saw there, for example, the thermostat housing, it's been there for 22 years. It's got holes here in the nipples. It's been all corroded. The water inlet, the same thing, it's been all corroded. The water outlet, it's been corroded. And once you've taken the water inlet and thermostat housing out, what you left with is a cooling pipe. And the cooling pipe on both ends has O-rings. So if you mess with the O-rings and they not new, you better change them. For this job, except tools, we will also need the high temperature RTV silicone gasket maker. We also will need the thread sealant, high temperature thread sealant. We will need the Teflon tape for parts like the temperature sensor and temperature sensor gauge. Where you have the parts and it has threads, you better use the Teflon tape and you better use the thread sealant. For the O-rings, you need specific the O-ring silicone grease. That will protect the O-rings, that will protect the rubber, that will help to slide the O-rings in its original position without damaging that. A few words about the clamps. A lot of people like to use these worm clamps. I do not, and I do not recommend you to use them. Always go with the constant tension clamps, like those. The difference is this constant tension clamp will allow the hose to expand when the cooling system gets hot, very hot, and it will shrink back in when the engine cools down. This will not allow you to do so. This will damage your hose over time. We use the constant tension clamps. Do not use the worm clamps. And I'll be going step by step and explaining what I'm doing for each of the component that I'm changing. So pay attention and enjoy the video. Before going underneath the hood and start taking things apart, let's talk about why I decided to change the both radiator hoses and the thermostat with the temperature sensor. The idea, guys, is you should be able to recognize the symptoms and find a common cause of the problem. Do not fix the symptoms, fix the problem. Find and fix the problem. Well, I had few symptoms. First of all, my engine started overheating. It was seriously getting hot. And every single time when I stop at the gas station to get gas, I open up the hood, I'm making sure there are no leaks, I make sure there are no visible problems, and I also recommend you guys to do so as well. Every single time when you pump in the gas in the gas station, open up the hood, investigate, look around and see if you see any problems with your car. That's what I was doing. And what I found was I had a little leak in the lower radiator hose right there. where the hose goes to the engine compartment here from the radiator, right? So I started blaming on the clamps. But before that, I went there and I investigated the hose itself, just to make sure the hose didn't have the problem, where it didn't crack on the joint here. So I said, you know, let's put another clamp and give it a try. I put another clamp, tightened up, there was no more leak here, but the engine overheats. And then it occurred to me, it was leaking next to the thermostat. The idea is, as the cooling system gets hotter, the thermostat is supposed to open here, and the cooling system that is hot goes out of engine, goes into radiator, cool down, and goes back up from the lower hose from the radiator back to the engine. If the thermostat is bad and it does not open, all this hot liquid start building up here in the lower radiator hose and cannot proceed to the engine. So what it does, it finds the weakest point, and weakest point turned out to be there. After investigating the problem, you should be able to find the common reason, the common cause for the problems. And the common cause for this problem is thermostat. One way to figure out if I was able to recognize the symptoms correctly is once I'm going to take the used thermostat here, I'm going to place in the boiling water and I'm going to see, does it actually open or not. If it does not open, then I was right. If it opens, there is something else going on. Very first thing what we want to do is we want to drain the cooling system. The way to do it, it's going to be a plug in underneath the radiator. You're going to unscrew that plug. I'm going to show you. You're going to put something to catch the fluid. You're going to open the radiator cap. You're going to unplug the reservoir. We're going to take out upper radiator hose. We're going to take out the lower radiator hose. We're going to take out the intake system. Very easy, guys. You just unclip, and there is one clamp here. You just loosen that clamp, taking the entire thing actually out. That's going to give you extra space to work on. Take out the battery because it's going to be on the way. We want to get as much space as we can. Always disconnect the negative terminal first and then positive when you're taking out. When you put them back together, you're doing the opposite. You're going to put the positive first and then you're going to put the negative. You have to get the drainage here. The drainage plug for the radiator on your Mitsubishi is going to be here. It can be pretty tight. If it's tight, take the piece of pliers. In my case, that wasn't too bad actually, so there you go. The radiator cap on top prevents the liquid from escaping because there is a pressure inside the system, so you need to turn loose the radiator cap. To turn loose the radiator cap, just press it down and counterclockwise. Yep. Investigate your radiator cap if it's in a good condition. If it is not, replace one. It's very cheap, about $6, but you need to have the radiator cap to hold the pressure, let the liquid to drain. Once you've taken the radiator cap off, you want to take the cooling liquid reservoir out. The way to do it, it's just holds by the metal plate there, so you have to grab by two hands and lift it up, just like this. There you go. And it holds by the metal plate right here, just like that. Disconnect that. Just hang it somewhere. And we have to dispose that. Once you dispose that into the containers, you go to any nearest shop, Jiffy Lube, wherever you find the nearest to you, and you give it to them and ask them to dispose. By law, they have to take it and recycle it. Disconnect the battery. You have to disconnect the negative terminal first, then the positive. So before I do that, let's just loosen up these secure locks here. There you go. This one. just like that. There you go. There you go. It's coming out. You might want to clean the terminal when you're going to put everything back together. It's up to you, but I'll probably will be cleaning them, replacing the pads here. Once the negative cable is out, then take out the positive terminal. 10mm wrench, just loosen up. There you go. No sparks because we disconnected the negative battery first. There you go. Just wrap it around too, so we won't make the mess, because I still have a lot of anti-static grease. Now we're ready to take out the battery. There is a casing. Once you take the battery out, you need to take the air intake system out. It's very easy. You got 4 clamps here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's going to be a air filter underneath. There you go. And you have to loosen up this clamp here. There you go. And it should slide right out. Just very gently start taking out. There you go. The next thing what we want to do is disconnect that electrical wiring here. Just press it down. There is one more thing you have to, it's connected, but there is just a nut, 10mm nut. Just turn that loose and you'll completely lose that electrical wiring, so that free to go. The very last thing is left that hose here that goes to the intake system from the engine. So I'm gonna use the heat gun. Just warm it up so it'll be more flexible, and then hopefully take that out. And after putting a little bit of heat, guys, I was able to take this out pretty easily. Once this is all out, you just take that air intake system out. Once you take out the air intake system, put some kind of rag here, guys. You don't want any debris or any dirt or rocks or sand to get in here, so this is very important. That's gonna go actually to a combustion chamber. I put additional the plastic wrap around so the dust will not get here. Next, we want to take out that battery holder. It's going to be right on the way to the thermostat. So as far as I can see, there is 2 12mm bolts you have to take out. So the 2 12mm bolts are out. I have to take one more 12mm bolt here. One. And one more 12mm bolt here. Plate is bolted to that plastic covering of the electrical wiring, so you want to take that 2 bolts, 10mm bolts out too. I've taken out 2 10mm bolts here that hold that plastic cover, and that should go right away if I'm not mistaken. Yep, that slides right away. There you go. And now we got plenty of room to work in. You wanted to take this plastic cover again off. It's supposed to hold right here. It's been broken a long time ago for me, so it doesn't really matter. But take that bolt out right here. That's going to give you even more space. Thermostat is in here, so that's where you want to work. You take out that 10mm bolt, and that's going to give you even more space to work on, but you have to kind of bend this up so to get to a thermostat. So the time is to take the lower radiator hose. We're going to take the clamps all the way around from here, and from the bottom and to here. And that's exactly what I was talking about, why this clamp is so bad. You see, I turned that clamp completely loose, but it's got so bad stuck into the hose that takes some effort actually to get it out. And look at all these marks that it's left. Do not use these clamps, guys. Use the constant pressure clamps. They are more expensive, but they're worth it. The upper radiator hose is out. I also took out the oxygen sensor out. That connection is here. That oxygen sensor goes like that. I also took this out because I don't want to damage anything. I want to wire brush that because it just got a lot of stains and stuff. You don't have to do it, guys, but I mean, I just like to keep my things clean here. I wire brush that output from the engine. I mean, I try to do my best job here, but next thing what you want to do is let all the coolant to drain out, jack up your car, and put on the stands. Make sure it's on stands. Put the jack underneath just as a backup safety, and then you want to go underneath and take the lower hose out from the radiator. Let all the coolant to drain out. The lower radiator hose is out. Didn't give me a hard time at all. I want to investigate. You see all the build up here. That's not good. I want to investigate the hoses itself. This one is going to the engine, and you see, guys, the build up here. That's not good. I think it's just a sand or something. The hose itself is not in a bad condition at all. And the next thing what we want to do is start taking the thermostat out, and it is right here. We got enough excess room. I think it's a 12 millimeter bolts here. You have to take them out. Yeah, that's a 12 millimeter bolt right there, and there is one more on the other side, on the parallel side, right? One up and one down. Take two 12 millimeter bolts out. 12 millimeter bolts out. So this one and the bottom one. And if I'm not mistaken, this is supposed to come out, and it did, just like that. There we go, guys. And inside there, that's going to be a thermostat. And here's the thermostat. Some people say it actually makes sense to put it in 12 o'clock. Not sure about that. So, I mean, seems like it's 7 to 2 or 7 to 1, sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure. So, but let's try to take out, and thermostat is out. I had to take the screwdriver and just prime it on the edges right here because it was not going out easily. So just be careful not to damage anything. And once I took it out, right off the spot, I noticed the bad gasket. It just wouldn't hold anything here for sure. So the gasket needs to be changed. Let's look inside there. Everything looks good. Yeah, I might just gonna clean up a little bit here, wire brush that. And as I said, guys, this is the way to test my theory if my engine was overheating because of the bad thermostat. So what we have to do now, take the gasket off, boil some water, place the thermostat into the boiling water, and see if it actually opens up. The thermostat was here. The temperature sensor is right to the left of that. Let's go ahead and take out the temperature sensor. There is a electrical wiring goes to that. I took a plastic brush and brushed it off right here. So should be all grease and dirt out. And the electrical connection is right there. It's visible, so we have to disconnect that. And turn loose the temperature sensor. It has all plastic connectors. It has a lock there, guys. Take the flat screwdriver, place it here and press it, and at the same time pull it out, and it's supposed to just come out just like that. That is off. You need a deep 12mm socket or 14mm socket. I got the socket in and I got the wrench here. Yep. So, and I just keep on turning off counterclockwise, and it's supposed to come out any second now. Yep, and it's out. You have to clean this area up. Just brush it. So I'm gonna clean that with a metal brush. I'm gonna clean the entry side of the temperature sensor, which is right there, and then I'm gonna take the wire brush and I'm gonna also clean this part right here and the entry part of the hose. You see all the decomposition here, the salts and all that substances that needs to be cleaned as well. I investigated the hoses, and the lower hose, radiator hose, needs to be changed. Yeah, it's pretty thin here. I'm gonna be changing that for sure. This is the thermostat cover that I was cleaning up with a metal brush, and guys, I want you to see how bad it is. You see all these cave-in things? So you see all this mess right here, and it correlates to the spots inside right here, closer to the end. Look at this. So I decided just to replace this part. It's about 20 bucks or so. I cleaned it up, but it's in a pretty bad shape, so I'll be changing that for sure. Also, I investigated the water outlet. This is the water outlet that goes here. I cleaned up from the top. I tried to go to the bottom, but I couldn't get much access to that, so I decided to take out. Very first thing that I noticed when I was taking out, the bolts that were holding the water outlet were too tight. That should not be so tight. 10 foot-pounds, that's enough, because it has RTV silicone gasket. So once you have an RTV silicone gasket here, it only needs about 10 foot-pound torque. So as I took this out, I started investigating, and look at these guys. All kind of composites. There is a decomposure of metal here, of aluminum. So I decided to go ahead and take this out and replace that as well. That was a little bit more expensive than the thermostat housing. That's about $40. As I'm waiting on additional parts to come in, I will be doing some work, additional work. First of all, we need to flush the system, the cooling system. It's been there, the coolant been there for a long number of years. Get the fresh tap water, garden hose. You put the garden hose here. You turn on, you let all the system to flush in. Second thing, you need to flush the engine block. This is the water outlet. You can flush through the outlet, or you can flush through the thermostat housing here. Whichever is easier. I'll probably do both direction. I'll go through the water outlet, so backwards, because the cooling system goes from the thermostat, goes through the engine and come out here and goes to radiator. After the flushing is done, I'll be cleaning up all this mess here. And this is how we flush the radiator. Just put the garden hose, and it's been flushing for a couple minutes. I'll give it a little bit more, and then we're gonna go from here, from the top to the side, and we're gonna do the same. We flushed the top part, now we're flushing the sideways here, and exactly the same procedure, nothing special. So let some tap water come through that, just take all the contamination what was there for years, let it out. Flush the cooling system in the engine. We kind of go in the reverse now, where I put the garden hose that the coolant was to come out to the radiator to cool down. But we're going in the reverse. It comes out of the hose from the thermostat housing, and you're just gonna hold it for a few minutes, let it run, let all the trash and all the junk to come out. And once it's come out, just reverse the direction of the garden hose. So you're gonna flush it from the thermostat housing and it will come out from this end now. Exactly the same procedure. We did the flush of the system. Now we put the garden hose here. It went through the thermostat housing, went all the way around the engine, come out here, and we just flush it. We didn't capture that because it was kind of, I needed a second hand here to hold that because the water was splashing everywhere. The system is flushed. Next thing what we want to do, start taking everything back apart. We want to take that apart. We want to take the thermostat housing apart. We want to clean all of this. I'm gonna inspect the condition of this hose, the heater hose. Maybe we want to replace that heater hose. Another thing, what I noticed, that heater hose right there, the bottom one, is in a pretty bad condition. So I'm gonna undo that clamp. I'm gonna take out the hose and I'll investigate that for any damages. If the hose is damaged, I'm gonna go ahead and replace that hose as well. I have taken the heater hose out. It's right here. It was held by one clamp. The clamp is here. You take the clamp out. That clamp needs to be either changed or brushed off. I'll probably brush it and reuse it. The outlet here is in pretty bad condition, so I'm gonna go with a metal brush around it. And let's take a look at the hose. It starts to decompose. There is a good chance that I probably have to change that. Cleaned up the heater hose input here. It is in pretty bad shape. So as you can see, guys, the car is pretty old. It's 22 years old, and one thing just connects to another thing, and if one thing is rusted and all in a bad shape, most likely another thing is also rusted. So the hose is in absolutely bad shape. There is no way I'm gonna put the same hose in there. So one of the options is, the cheapest and probably the easiest option is just go ahead and cut this hose, heater hose, somewhere here, and just use that part and put it on the outlet here. Second cheapest would be just go ahead and replace the entire heater hose. And the third option, go ahead and change the hose and go ahead and change the entire thermostat housing here. I'm considering all options. I have to do all kind of research here, trying to figure out how much that part would cost me, how long is shipping, and taking all this into account, I'll make my decision. But if I'll decide to take the thermostat housing out, it's not gonna be bad. It has two bolts here. After a little bit of research, I've made a decision. This thermostat housing, I'll be changing. I found that on AliExpress for about 12 bucks and $8 for shipping. So it's gonna cost me about $20 or so. It goes to the coolant pipe underneath here. And the cooling pipe is connected with a O-ring. So I will need to replace the O-ring as well. That cooling pipe is mounted to the engine and have only one bolt. There is one bolt here, 12mm bolt. Untie the bolt and that pipe is supposed to come right off. That pipe, that cooling pipe, goes all the way through the engine on the other side of the car, and it goes to the water pump, which is here. And here's the cooling pipe right there. I changed that cooling pipe about 2 years ago with all rings, so that's not a big problem. I took out the little hose here that was going like that, okay? I'm planning to replace this because you see what kind of condition that hose is in. That needs to be replaced for sure. So you'll ask me how you can take the straight hose and bend it like that so it almost fits the OEM part. You can try to find it somewhere OEM part, but you're probably gonna pay for this little hose probably 20-40 bucks, I don't know. The point is, you can take any straight hose with the right size, which is 3/8 here, and bend it. How to do that? Please watch the bonus video how to bend it, and I'm gonna show step by step. You need a heat gun and you need the copper tubes, bendable copper tubes, and it only cost me $2.99. To take the thermostat housing out, there are 2 bolts here on the top, 12mm bolts. One is here and one is there. There is one 12mm bolt underneath that holds the bottom of the thermostat housing. You just undo them and thermostat housing goes to the cooling pipe. It's holding up right there, if you can see it, right there, with the one 12mm bolt. Turn that one 12mm bolt loose, the entire coolant goes out. In total, you have to take only 4 bolts. 2 on the top here, 2 on the top here, 1 at the bottom here, 1 to the cooling pipe. The 2 top bolts are very easy to get to, and you see, you guys, I already undo them right there. The bottom one, you have to put the extension. It is a 12mm socket, so put the extension. It's pretty easy to get to it as well, right here. I took all the bolts out. The cooling pipe bolt, I took the 2 bolts on the top. There is a little electrical connector, guys, here. You have to disconnect that right here. That goes to the thermostat housing. With all the bolts out, we're supposed to take that thermostat housing and just move it over. As you can see, it start coming out here. So the cooling pipe slide pretty easily from the other side. Make sure you have some kind of bucket once you pull the cooling pipe out. Make sure you have a bucket because that's gonna just splash everywhere. And here's the cooling pipe, guys, right there. Just pull it out, change your O-rings. Here it comes, right? Here's the cooling pipe and here's the thermostat housing. So take the thermostat housing out right here and take the cooling pipe. Take that 2 hoses out, the heater hoses, that one and this one right here. I took the 2 hoses out and cooling pipe went right out. So here's the O-rings, guys, that I was talking about. Here's one and the other one is in there. I'm gonna take this apart. That thing just went right out, so it was just like that. But O-rings are not in a bad shape. I put the new one. This is the thermostat housing that I'm currently waiting on. That part's supposed to come tomorrow. While I'm waiting on the part, clean this up and prepare for the RTV silicone gasket maker. You see, guys, all this mess, it needs to be clean. Let's clean this up. You see this, guys, right here? That's where the thermostat housing is going. It used to be here for a long time. I got some rusted spots around here. So what you have to do, you have to make it as smooth as possible. This part right here, as smooth as possible. So when you put the RTV silicone gasket maker here, it's gonna seal properly. It needs to have the even surface here. I'm going to take that little piece of file right here, the needle files, really easy, smooth out. Piece of file does not work here. In my case, it did not work because this part right here outside is pretty smooth and it's a little bit unevenly sticking out compared to this side. So if I'm gonna try to put the piece of file here, it's gonna just smooth out the outside but not inside. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take that little piece of sandpaper that I used before. You don't want it to be too rough, and take that rusted spots and just go over them a few times and make it smooth. This is the heater hose that was going right there, so it goes right here. I'm gonna clean this up and I'm gonna take this out as well. A few tips about how to take out the stock hose. This is the heater hose that I'm trying to take out right here, and as you can see, guys, this heater hose been here for years. So it's house. It got used to it. It's got really sealed on that. So what do you have to do? You have to break that connection between the pipe and the rubber. So what I do, I usually use that kind of hook right here and try to get behind the rubber and stick just like that. Okay, once you stick that you try to pull with the second hand on the rubber itself, and you're trying to pull at the same time on that peak, and that's supposed to slide out, and you have to kind of wiggle it around. It just takes time and patience. Just be patient. Just after multiple attempts, it went right off. Here it is. So just remember, guys, you have to take a peek or something and just, you know, be able to get behind that hose. I found the cheap versions of these hoses, so I'm gonna do this, but still I need to bend one hose that goes from here to the thermostat housing. So I'll be doing that hose manually. What I have to do now is just outlets and clean them up, get ready for them to use. And just a reminder, this is the outlet pipe that goes to the cooling pipe, and cooling pipe will be here, and this is the intake. So output and the intake goes from the thermostat housing. Okay, I finally got all parts that I need. They just came in. I want to show you thermostat housing. This is the holder that I made it myself. The water outlet. This is the water outlet behind the engine. This is the cooling pipe, the battery holder, and the lower radiator hose holder. All the parts in. I cleaned them up. I prepare them, and just for the comparison, I want you to see this is the new parts and this is the old parts. I want to show you something, guys. Here it is. Look at this outlet. It is rusted all the way through. All the way through. So if you see the signs of corrosion, it's probably not going to last you much longer. This is the only part that made me to completely change the entire water outlet. Now we're at the point where we're going to reassemble everything back. First thing first, what we want to do, we want to take the old thermostat housing and take the engine coolant temperature gauge unit out, and we're going to replace that and put into the new one. That's where it goes. If you want to change that, it's about $5 plus shipping and handling. So unscrew that, the torque spec on that, we want to go about 8 feet-pounds on this one, and also we're gonna put some Teflon tape on that, just like that. There you go. It goes by hand. When you work with a cooling system, anywhere where there are threads, you want to put a Teflon tape, which is the temperature sensor, temperature gauge unit, wherever has threads on that. The way you put the Teflon tape is you want to face the threads and put the clockwise, so that way when you start screwing in, it also goes with the direction of clockwise, so it's gonna wrap, it's not gonna unwrap. You don't want to unwrap, because once it's unwraps, it just becomes a mess. So go clockwise, look at that and go clockwise, and you want to go 4 or 5 wraps around. You want to do just like that, and you want to go clockwise and against the roller, right? So it's not going to just unfold on you, and you want to go 4 or 5 wraps around. Just like that. Now take the new thermostat housing. That's where the gauge goes in. So we start screwing it in, right? And we're going clockwise. So you see, guys, it's not unfolding. It goes with the direction that we put on. Wrote down some of the torque specs here. So engine coolant temperature gauge unit, 8 ± 1 feet-pounds. That's tight enough. Look inside. You see a little bit of Teflon tape. You see the sensor gauge here. Second thing, what we want to do, guys, we want to degrease the parts that will be contacting the engine compartment, where the RTV silicone gasket will go. You want to degrease that. I'll just take the brake and parts cleaner fluid here. Okay, that will degrease that, and that will degrease that. Also, you want to degrease the engine compartment where it's gonna go. So you want to degrease that part right here, and you want to make sure it's gonna dry when you're gonna put RTV silicone gasket. And we'll go on this side, the thermostat housing will go here. And remember, guys, I sand scrape that. You want that to be as smooth as possible. Now that part is degreased. We want to put the O-rings on the cooling pipe. We're gonna put the red ones, that's the new ones. You want to apply the O-ring silicone grease. That will help to slide that O-ring on place. Comes, and it's easy. You want to take the second O-ring, same thing, and put it here, just like that. And it slides very easy with the lubricant. Just take a little bit more here and there, and make sure you have enough on both ends. Yep, and here. And we want to put it here, because that's where that is going to go here. Now we're ready to slide it here where it goes to the thermostat housing. Just make sure don't put any grease on the part that we just decreased, okay? Put some pressure, not much, just some pressure. There you go. Now what we want to do is we want to put that end into the water pump, and also you want to, guys, put the silicone grease into the the water pump where the cooling pipe goes. Just be careful not to put the grease all the way around. Just there you go, right there, in that spot where the cooling pipe will go. Just put enough. And also guys, I forgot to mention, before you put in any grease here, make sure you actually take the mirror and go and check the nest is clean. Now we're ready to apply the RTV red silicone gasket maker. I'm ready to open her up. You have to cut wide enough to actually spread the RTV silicone gasket maker. You're gonna take that knob, put it upside down, and you make a hole. Then you're gonna screw this in. You're gonna go all the way around it where the gasket will go, and around the holes as well. Don't put too much. It doesn't have to be too much. Then we have to act fast. Before it's gonna dry out, I'm gonna have a second person will help me. I'm gonna pass this end of the pipe to the other end. We're gonna stick to the water pump, make sure it clicks and we hear the click. Once it's there, I'm gonna put the bolts in here, and then you align the bolts. Before you make a contact with the RTV silicone maker, you're gonna put the bolts all the way in, and then you're gonna screw just the top of that, just the tips, so it's gonna align. Once it's aligned, then you're gonna slide this along the bolts way, and you slide it in, and you're gonna put just a little bit of pressure, and you hand tie the bolts. I had the second person help me to put the other end to the water pump. I put the RTV silicone gasket maker here all the way around. Don't need much, guys. You don't have to make a mess. It just what I have here, just enough. Okay, and then you want to hand tie it until you see the RTV gasket start squeezing out. You don't want to tie it all the way. You want to hand tie it, and you want to leave it for 1 hour. 1 hour later, you want to come back and torque it to the specs, which is 17 feet-pounds. You see the silicone is barely squeezed out. So I'll wait 1 hour and I'll come back and I'll torque it to 17 feet-pounds. Don't over tighten that. So 17 feet-pounds is good enough. Now we are ready to do this side. It's gonna be exactly the same process. I'm gonna put some RTV around here, and I'm gonna slide the bolts, align, and then I'm gonna slide it along the bolts, hand tie that, and leave it for 1 hour. This is the water outlet, the new one. The same thing, and I'm gonna show you this process this time because I don't have to have a second person helping me. Here's RTV. We degrease that part, so this part is degreased. So what we want to do is take the continuous line and go all the way around. Don't have to be much, and it has to be continuous line. Just like that, and now go around the holes too. Just like that. And go around that hole as well. There you go. We're done with that. And now what you're gonna do, you're gonna align the bolts first before you're gonna squish anything. And you're just gonna tip the bolts here. And remember guys, this mark right here, that needs to be outside. There you go. We align the bolts. Now we're gonna squeeze that just like that, not too much, and gonna tie the bolts up. You don't want to wiggle it back and forward. You want to reduce the wiggling as much as possible. Now I'm going to take the ratchet and I'm going to hand tie that. Don't have to be much because we'll come back and we're going to retie that.
and you want to see when it's gonna squish out. Just like that. Here at the bottom a little bit, here, and that's it. We're gonna wipe off the excess of that and come back in 1 hour and gonna torque it to the specs. I forgot to put that radiator hose, guys, so I unscrew that and I'm gonna screw it back in with that stuff in here. And tied that. We let it thermostat house to sit for 1 hour and let the RTV to harden a little bit. Now we're ready to screw on the specs and the torque specs. And the torque specs are for thermostat housing 3 bolts, 17 feet-pounds, guys. That is 10, that is 15, and I got 17. And we want to turn that knob right here at the bottom, so we fix that. We got that extension here. So there we go, 17. That you heard the click, the top one. So we go to the bottom one. There we go. One more time. There you go. And the right one. There you go. Let's try it again. Yeah. That's a tight space here for the torque wrench, but I'm trying to do my best here. Yeah. And that's tight enough, guys. I mean, I already did multiple times. That is done. That part is done. Now we're gonna go to the water outlet bolt, which is 10 newtons meters plus minus 1, or 7.5 feet-pounds plus minus 1, 8 feet-pounds. There you go. Start from the bottom one, and you don't want to go all the way to the click. You just want to do the bottom one and then go to the top one. Go now. Top one. All right. Oh, actually wasn't too much. There you go. And one more time. There you go. And here one more time. There is one remaining bolt that needs to go to a cooling pipe that holds the cooling pipe. Remember, guys, the cooling pipe goes 2 ends, and there is a fitting in here that holds the cooling pipe. Put some anti-seize, not much, but you know, you don't want that bolt to get rusted or anything. Feed in that bolt into the cooling pipe. Right there. You should be able to see that bolt. Yeah. It's not focused. So, yeah, right there. So you want to just screw it in, and it's 12 millimeter. There is no torque specs on that bolt. It's getting tight now, so just a few more times. Doesn't have to be super tight, guys, just tight enough to hold the cooling pipe. That's it. It's good enough. Now we are free to put the thermostat. So the way we do it, exactly the same way. Take the O-ring silicone grease. You're gonna apply that silicone grease onto the O-ring, and you want to go first inside, so it's gonna slide easier. And take that, and I want to go just on the edges. There you go. You want to make sure it's all the way in. Just put a little bit grease on the sides because it's gonna slide in. So the way we want to put, somebody says 12 o'clock. To me, it doesn't really make any difference. And you should just slide here. And let me put a little bit grease on the sides here, so it will slide easier. Now, like they say, 12 o'clock. And whole reason why we put in grease, so it won't damage the seal here. Right here, just like that, perfectly sealed in. So what I'm gonna do, the RTV silicone gasket is not necessary here, but I'm gonna put one anyway, and wait for 1 hour and torque it down. So let me degrease that surface. It's the same procedure. You have to take the water inlet, degrease the surface here with the same brakes and parts cleaner, just like that. Okay. And what you want to do with the thermostat housing side is you don't want to take that big old spongy thing, because that will go all over the O-ring, the seal. So you want to take something like this that is small enough, and you want to go all the way around the edge of the thermostat housing, and don't touch the seal actually. So go on the sides here, but try not to touch the seal, and that will degrease that. Now I'm going to take that red RTV silicone gasket maker, and I'll go very thin around it, very close to the seal itself, but I'll try to stay away from it, but it's going to be a really thin layer. Try to do as best as I can without creating too much mess, but that's going to look something like this. So that should do it. Maybe a little bit touch the base on top right here on this spot, and maybe at the bottom here. That's two places. I just added a little bit more, so should look something like this. Now we're going to put the water inlet on the top and hand tighten that and wait for 1 hour. And at this point you just want guys to hand tighten that and let it wait for 1 hour. So let me do that. So alternate the top and bottom. There you go. And the top one. And you want to watch the one that's gonna squeeze. Yeah, start squeezing out. There you go. A little bit here. On the bottom one. And I think that'll do it. So you see it just squeezes a little bit, not much. So wait 1 hour and come back to it and tie to the specs. This is the M8 bolts, this one and this one, and they will be 13 plus minus 2 Newton meters or 9.5 plus minus 2 feet-pounds. So I'll put it to 10 feet-pounds and that'll do it. 1 hour later, guys, we're gonna touch the water inlet bolts 10 feet-pounds. Red gasket maker got hardened here. Go ahead and start from the bottom one and then go to the top and just switch turns. Start from the bottom one. Just a little bit. Go back to the top one. A little bit. That's it. The bottom one. That's it. One more time. Yeah. Top one again. That will do it. We let it sit for 24 hours. The water inlet, the water outlet, the thermostat housing, the RTV silicone gasket should harden at this point. I didn't want to bother anything, so I left it alone for 24 hours. Came back. Now we are ready to put the engine coolant temperature sensor. This is the old one. This is the new one. So just remember, guys, anyway you see a threads and it's related to a cooling system, you want to put the Teflon tape, and that's what we're gonna do again. Just put 4 or 5 wraps around the Teflon tape, and you have to have a 20mm deep socket to get to it, and you want to torque it down to a 22 plus minus 6 feet-pound. So let's start it. Let's take the new temperature sensor, and remember, guys, you want to take the Teflon tape and go clockwise. You face the threads as it goes in, and you want to go clockwise. And remember, you want to go against the roller because you don't want that thing start unwrapping on you. So make it fix here and start going just like that. And clockwise, I believe this is my third one right here. I just do one more, just like that. Just snap it. There you go. So you see, guys, the end is here, so when you start screwing, it will go with the direction of the Teflon tape was put on. A 19mm socket, and we want to torque it down to 22 plus minus 6 feet-pounds. We're ready to put it in. It's already pretty tight, so I'm gonna put a socket here. You want to do a deep socket, 19mm deep socket. So let's go ahead and change that to the torque wrench. What we want to do, we want to make sure that the electrical connector will line up with the temperature sensor. So we're gonna tie it to 20, actually let's do 22, and then we're gonna readjust. So it's 22 here, and then once we got to 22, we're gonna readjust and make sure the electrical connector is lined up. Yeah. If you're not gonna make it to 22 feet-pounds, that's totally fine. I think it's already most all the way in. You want to take that nest and make sure it's aligned. Right, in my case it is aligned. There you go. It freely goes back and forth. Just don't plug it in yet because we might need that extra space. Okay, once that's done, next let's put all the hoses back on. One thing I want to mention, guys, is you saw I did the Teflon tape on the threads. Put the a thread sealant, a high temperature thread sealant, on the top of the Teflon tape. That will secure and that will prevent any further leaks. And let it sit for it says 72 hours, but probably 24 hours is enough. Just go ahead and start putting every hose back in. This is the hose that goes to the cooling pipe. And you see, guys, I'm not gonna change the entire hose, but you see the end is really damaged here. So I'm just gonna cut that part right here around it with the utility knife. Just make sure once you'll be cutting this, make sure you don't cut any fuel lines, you don't cut anything else. On each connection with the hose and the metal, I'm gonna put that silicone paste. That's a really good stuff. That's gonna prevent your hose and the metal part from oxidation. It's not gonna damage your rubber, it's not gonna affect your metal, but it's gonna prevent from oxidation. And it looks something like this. It's really thick actually. So, but yeah, it's gonna look something like this. And before putting the hose, make sure you put the clamp back on. So you just want to put just a bit of the silicone paste around the knob. And just a little bit inside here. That will actually help the hose slide back on the knob. And you want to just slide that thing right there. Yeah. And it's gonna look something like this. Okay. Now you put that clamp back on. This used to be the old hose right here. And you see, guys, that the shape of that. And this is the new one. So it's gonna go just like that. I just put the new one on. That seems to be just perfect. Yeah. So I'm ready to put the clamps on, and I think it's not gonna kink here. We want to take the clamps. Yeah, just like that. Here. Slide it a little bit further here. We'll put it back on. See how that fits. And I put silicone paste here, so it's gonna slide a whole lot easier. Right there. And right there. We want to release that clamp. Put the clamps back on. And you see, guys, this is the new hose that I bended myself. It's not kinking here. We're ready to put the heater hose input, and this is output. Before you start putting the heater hoses, you want to clean them up, and I showed you that I did with the sandpaper. Sandpaper can be a little rough on the steel pipes. So what do you want to do? You want to use that scuff pads like that. Me personally, I use that the red one, 320 grit. So I cut it just a piece like that here, and I went through. It's pretty good. It's a lot softer than the sandpaper. It's not as rough on the steel. So I went in all the way around. It looked very shiny. This is the intake heater pipe. So this one goes in the farthest one, and this end goes to the thermostat housing, and this is the outlet heater hose. That end goes here, and the other end goes to a cooling pipe underneath there. So we're going to start with the farthest one, so it's easier to work it out. You're going to take that right here, yeah, and it's going to hold it, slide all the way in. Release that clamp. This is the outlet pipe, so I just put that end in. Now I'm ready to put that end in. So before we actually put the tool, we're gonna squeeze here. Yeah, and it holds. So let's squeeze it in. That's it. We're ready to put the one heater hose back into the thermostat housing and one heater hose back into the cooling pipe. Put the clamp already. That's the outlet. This is it right here. So what you want to do is just you want to slide that thing and you want to release that clamp. Looks like this. Put the hose a little bit further if you need to and readjust that clamp. Now you want to put intake hose in. And this is how it's gonna look. The inlet, outlet goes to the cooling pipe. As you can see, I put clamp on here. This is the intake heater hose, goes to a thermostat housing. That's just grease. That's not gonna hurt anything. That's gonna protect your hose from decomposing. Next thing what we want to do, you see all these connectors, guys, that I disconnected. You want to clean them up and plug everything back in, because the only thing that is left is the lower radiator hose and upper radiator hose, and putting everything, reassembling everything back together. Make sure you check, double check all electrical connectors. They all have to be plugged in. For me personally, I count them, how many I did take out just to clean up and how many I'm putting back. So I count 9. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, the temperature sensor 5, 6, the temperature sensor gauge 7, 8, and behind the heater hose 9. Once they all in, we're ready to put the lower radiator hose. So I already put that protective thing. Actually, it goes like that. This end goes to water inlet, this goes to radiator, and I already put the clamps on that, so that's the easy part. I already put the silicone paste inside here and silicone paste outside of the water inlet, and you're just gonna align that just like that. Then you have to take the pliers. Use this piece of pliers right here to squeeze that clamp. So it's gonna stay in that position. So I'm ready just to put on, and then I'm gonna release that. Yep. And now you just wanna release that. There you go. What I'm gonna do next, I'm just gonna make sure everything is aligned and this clamp is not over the water inlet. I just readjust that clamp right here, just make sure it's not going over. You see just a little bit of grease, the silicone paste sticking out. That won't hurt anything. So ready to put the bottom part now, and it's going to be a very similar process. I was able to use that pliers again here just to squeeze the clamp, and I'm gonna set that hose into the radiator. There you go. Adjust the clamp just to make sure that it's not going over the radiator. So this part is done. While I've been working on this part, I decided to take some of the rusty bolts here and clean this up, and just put the anti-seize and clean this up part. Put the anti-seize on the oxygen sensor. It has nothing to do with cooling system, but I said once I'm here, let me just clean everything up. Better to put this back on before you put the radiator hose. Now we're ready to put the upper radiator hose. I have a new one, guys, but I decided to use the old one. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the old one. There is no even internal damage to the hose. I cut the outer ends, and if it's gonna give me any problems, that's very easy job to do, to replace that. But at this point, I'm just gonna use the old one. So the same procedure, we're gonna apply some silicone paste around here, that's gonna help us to slide the hose. We don't want to see this thing next time when we take out rubber hose. This is oxidation. We want to avoid this oxidation. To avoid this oxidation, put the silicone paste on that. That's not gonna oxidize plastic, of course, but that's gonna help to slide the hose in. And we're ready to put this on. There you go. Now we're ready for this one. Similar process. Take this, squeeze it. There you go. Release that. This is how it's supposed to look. So we went a little bit closer to this end, not bypass the water outlet here, the edge of that, and the same thing here. Next thing, what we want to do, start taking care of this part. The battery holder, the air intake, the air manifold. Take this out, take the throttle body cleaner, and use the throttle body cleaner to clean up. We take the battery holder. This is how it goes. The two screws, 10-inch goes here. The two screws goes 12-inch here, right there. And just like that. So you want to be careful, making sure not to damage anything around here. There you go. Line up your screws. So now take a little bit anti-seize, start putting back everything in. There you go. That's one. That's two. That's three. Go. So this is pretty tight by hand. This is pretty tight by hand. This is getting tight. Yeah, it's about right. Now take the 10mm bolts. The two bolts go here. Take a little bit anti-seize on that as well. And you want to line up for 10mm bolts here. Line up the holes. Same thing here. There you go. That's good enough. One bolt goes to the water inlet hole. It's gonna hold the wiring as well. Up in here, just like that. Another 10mm, and which goes here. And I did it myself, kind of improvised version of wire holding. Just making sure we got everything lined up, tighten up with the ratchet. You want to go kind of star wise, you know, you want to tighten up a little bit here, tighten up a little bit here. It doesn't have to be too tight. That's the 10mm bolts, guys. They go nowhere. Don't have to be super tight. The same thing here. Just barely snag it. You don't want to break the plastic. The same thing here, right? Just barely snag it. That's the 10mm bolts. Change into a 12mm. The same thing. Want to go star pattern. Tighten up this one. Tighten up this one. Tighten up this one. Tighten up this one. That's it, just a hand tight. It goes nowhere, guys. Next thing what we want to do is start taking the air intake system here. I washed it inside, just make sure that there is no dust or anything. Be patient with that. Mine not gonna go all the way like immediately. It's supposed to slide in pretty easily. Just like that. So the bottom part is broken, as I mentioned. So I'm using that clamp here. This is the best solution that I could come up with. If you have better solutions for me, how to hold that air intake, please leave in the comments. And you take that 10mm bolt here, goes on top here and here. Just hand snag it, don't have to be much at all. That's it, that's good enough. Take this out, take the throttle body cleaner and use the throttle body cleaner to clean up. We want absolutely clean rag. We're going to take this out slowly. There you go, pulling away from all the dust. Let's take that rag out as well. There we go. Take the throttle body cleaner and just spray it. Good enough. Take the air manifold, make sure there is no dust, no dirt. Start taking it in. It's gonna slide. I think this is 10mm bolt here on that clamp, and you start tightening up. Don't have to be much. Again, just hand tighten that. There you go, that's good enough. Next thing, we want to connect that hose from the engine. I put some silicone paste on that so it's gonna slide easier. Put around it, that's gonna protect my hose as well. There you go, it's all the way in. We want to put the L filter inside and connect all electrical. There are 2 electrical things we still have to connect. Oxygen sensor, it's gonna go just like that, and it's gonna sit on the top here. And that's the oxygen sensor is gonna go on top right here. That's gonna connect here, just like that. And lastly connection, we have a nut going here. Slide this in, just like that. Slide this here. We're ready to put the air filter in there and tighten the bolt in here and put the battery on. We want to take the air filter and we want to slide that. Just like that. And you're going to snag the clamps up. I think that's 10mm nut right here. So doesn't have to be tight, just snag it. There you go, that's good enough. Put that back on. Isolate the positive, just like that. You don't want any shortcuts or anything here. That's be fine. So ready for the battery. The battery is up. Remember guys, when we were taking out the negative first, then the positive. When we put them back on, it's a reversed. So we put the positive first and then the negative. Here's what I got, the battery terminal protectors. I got them at Walmart for $1. That's the positive, that's the negative. There you go. And you want to put grease here. Now we're going negative. Just the same procedure, just take a little bit of dielectric grease and grease up all the things here. A little bit of here, that will prevent from the corrosion. There you go. Take the 10mm wrench and tighten up. Doesn't have to be too tight again, just a snag. I forgot to mention, guys, protective thing on the battery here and protection that holds the battery in place. Because everything is in place, the only thing that is left is radiator cap, the at the bottom drain plug, and the cooling liquid reservoir. Let's go ahead and put the liquid coolant reservoir. I'll be using the same hose. I've just changed the clamps. I really did not like the clamps. Here's your positions for sliding reservoir down on that plate here. Here's the plate against the power system, power steering reservoir. So you're just gonna slide it. This goes here. Release the clamp here. Slide it a little bit down. Here. Just like that. Okay. Let me go and put the plug. Here's the plug. Just put it on. Doesn't have to be super tight, just enough to hold the liquid from not coming out. So just snag it by hand. All right, everything looks good. Double check that underneath the hoses are all right. Here's the lower radiator hose. Everything looks good. Now we are ready to flush the system. Few words. Flushing system probably I'll do with the distilled water. You can do with the tap water. It's up to you guys. Once you've done such a big job, my recommendation would be to start with water. Don't put the cooling, start with water. You always can drain the water out. The reason why you want to start with water is if there is a leak, you don't want to mess with the cooling. I mean, the cooling will get everywhere, it's hard to clean. You want to first check if there are any leaks in the system. It's a pretty big job that we've done here. So we want to make sure that it does not leak. If we see there is a leakage, we can always drain the water out. It's a lot cheaper than coolant, and the water is easier to clean than the coolant. To flush the system, how are we gonna do that? People just put the water here and they just adding up and it spilled over. I have a trick for you guys. Here I got on Amazon for 20 bucks. Very useful thing. Use it. This is the spill-proof funnel kit. What you're gonna find inside is very cool things. You'll find multiple adapters, tubes, extension tubes, multiple adapters for all kind of radiators. Okay, the cool thing is the yellow adapter goes with the yellow cup, just like that. The green one goes with the green one. So you want to use the blue one. You take the with the gasket down, you put it in the radiator just like that. You take the cup, and you screw it in just like a radiator cap, just like that. Taking everything from inside, just sticking in just like that. Okay, and you have a knob here. Once it's filled up, you just push it down and take this out just like that, and remaining water will stay here. As I mentioned, I'll be using the distilled water. There you go. Pre-stone cooling system cleaner. I'll use that to flush the system. That will help to eliminate all the stuff that build up here in the cooling system all this time in the metal parts, not in the hoses, but in the metal parts. Open her up. And I'll put some into the reservoir. Distilled water. And some goes into the reservoir here. So it took about 1.5 gallons, I would assume. Guys, before cranking up the car, make sure you don't hear any splashes. Just check visually if you see anything that you think might have a problem. As far as I can see, the water level stays the same. It's a good sign. There is no leaks. I'm finally ready to crank up the car. The water level somewhere around here. Let's put that here back in where it belongs, so everything is in place. Very exciting moment for me, guys. I'm ready to crank up the car. Wait until the system gets hot enough, opens the thermostat, and water start going circulating all the way. And I can see it cleaning stuff start coming back. Take a look visually if you see any leaks. To me, everything works fine. Put the heater on all the way so it starts circulating through the heater as well. There you go. I see the temperature goes up a little bit. This is a good sign. Add a little bit more water to it. Good enough. The whole idea is, guys, you want to get all air out of the system. All right, guys, I've been waiting for quite some time now. The system is pretty hot now. Look at this brownish dirty stuff. I visually inspected the car underneath. I don't see any leaks. Everything looks good. The temperature is at the operating level. Everything looks great. I'm pretty amazed with the cleaning pre-stone stuff, guys, that I got it here. I mean, that did amazing job. Look, I mean, look at this, all that brownish stuff. All right, guys, that's been about 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes. Car is running. I see no leaks. I see no visual problems. Again, I wanna show you how dirty the cooling stuff was. Take that plug it in, just like this. Okay. Now we're gonna squeeze this out, and you let all this dirty stuff out. Take this out. We're ready for a test drive, guys. I've ran the system for about 2 hours last night. I've ran it for about 3 or 4 hours today. So I test driven it last night. I test driven whole day today. No obvious problems. I don't see any leaks. The cooling system still full. It's an operating temperature range. It does not go higher, it does not go lower. Not like before when the thermostat was bad. The Freestone cooling system cleaner says for the light cleaning, run the engine for about 10 minutes. For heavy duty cleaning, run the engine for about 3 to 6 hours. And that's what I did. I did 6 hours plus minus hour. Since the system was so dirty after running the cleaner for the first time, I decided to go ahead and repeat the entire process again. That's only $4.
I'm gonna drain the system. I'll let the engine cool down. You don't want to open the radiator cap while the engine is hot. You need to wait until the engine cools down, and you want to start from the bottom. Open the valve of the radiator. I'm gonna repeat the entire process. I'm not gonna capture that on camera for your information, guys. It's gonna be exact the same process, exact the same steps. Just want to show you how you drain your system. Make sure the engine is not hot. Make sure it's cooled down. Open the valve in the radiator. You're done.
Oh, you see, guys, it's how brownish it is. It's certainly, I want to do that second run. Open that radiator cap. Yeah. And you see all the brownish water there. So let it drain, and we're gonna repeat the entire process again.
It has been a couple days since I flushed the system, and by the way, I flushed the system 3 times, and I just want to share with you, this is the very first flush that I was able to drain it, and you see, guys, this was the second flush. A little bit better than the first one, but still very dirty. And this is the third one. It's a lot more cleaner at this point. This is just the container that the bottom broke, and this was after the second flush. And guys, I want you to see what's inside there. Definitely make sure you get your system clean. Again, the cooling system cleaner that I've been using is Pristone. I use one such bottle for in total about 100 and 150 miles of driving, about 6 hours of driving. Make sure the weather permits you to do that. So if you leave your car outside, make sure it doesn't go below 32 degrees. I would say have about 3, maybe 5 more flushes to do in my cooling system. I'll just keep on driving. It's gonna take me weeks to completely clean the system. Few words about coolant that you flush. Do not drain it into the environment. Bring that to the shops. Leave that by the door at the shops. They have to take it from you, and they have to recycle it. I just want to go around again and just finalize everything what's been done, and just to show you that I have no problems. This is how it looks after everything being changed. Guys, see it? It's a couple 100 miles, no obvious problems here. Thermostat housing with a silicone gasket maker there, squeezing out just perfectly. You'll see my custom made hose there, no problems. You'll see 2 heater hoses, no leaks here. The transmission block is completely dry. All right, guys, the job is done. Originally, I wanted just to change the thermostat and temperature sensor, the upper and the lower radiator hose. I ended up changing most of the cooling system. That's how it goes with all cars, guys. As I mentioned, I had to flush it a few more times, probably 3 to 5 more times, because system is still very, very dirty. So it'll take me probably a couple more weeks to do all that, but the job is done, guys. It wasn't too bad. Mostly we had to wait for the parts coming on mail, so that took the longest probably. But again, the job is completed. I would like to thank all my viewers, all the subscribers. Please subscribe, leave the comments, like or dislike the video, leave your opinion, leave your suggestions. Your comments are always welcome, and I will respond to them. Ask questions. There are a lot more content that's coming out. I have a lot more work to do on this car. I have a lot more work to do on the different cars. So I'll be posting all these videos. I'll be showing you step by step how to do and how to work on your car. Thank you a lot, guys. See you next time.